Le presento al cocinero. This is your new employer. You address him as Don Hilario. It's a term of respect.
Hola, joven.
They call Breaking Bad the greatest show ever made. But what if I told you half of it plays like a crime drama trapped inside a cartoon? For a show canonized as one of television's greatest achievements, Breaking Bad remains fascinatingly imperfect. Underneath its immaculate cinematography and operatic tension lies a minefield of tonal oddities, misfired subplots, and scenes that briefly transform a prestige drama into high-budget fan fiction. Its brilliance is undeniable, but so are its lapses. Let's begin in Mexico, where Jesse Pinkman's tequila-soaked field trip descends into something resembling a Narcos cartoon. His grandiose chemistry lesson, the botched action escape, Gus Fring strutting through bullets like an undead mob boss. Visually spectacular, yes, but tonally absurd. It's as if the writers briefly forgot which show they were making. Still, the Mexico arc gives us one of Gus Fring's most iconic moments. Don Eladio is dead. His capos are dead. You have no one left to fight for. A Shakespearean flourish delivered, regrettably, in what might be the most tortured Spanish since high school language class. One can admire Giancarlo Esposito's authority, while also acknowledging that his Spanish sounds like a GPS reading cue cards. The show's occasional detours into linguistic comedy are forgivable. What's harder to excuse is its sporadic flirtation with cartoon logic. Walt tossing a chemical bomb at his feet without blowing the room, or himself, to pieces, remains ludicrous. The "this is not meth" explosion belongs in a Looney Tunes sketch, not a grounded crime drama. It's memorable, yes, but mostly for how shamelessly it breaks the show's own physics. The same tonal schizophrenia surfaces with the Salamanca twins. Two trench-coated specters wandering through Albuquerque like Terminators on a spiritual retreat. Breaking Bad thrives on moral realism. The twins feel imported from a lesser show. Their mute menace might have worked in a pulp thriller, but within Gilligan's careful moral universe, they're absurdly indestructible, draining tension by being too invincible to fear. Not all sins are of excess. Some are of indulgence. Marie Schrader's kleptomania arc, for instance, divides audiences. Detractors see filler, a purple-draped distraction from the meth-fueled main event. Defenders recognize its function, a mirror to Hank's hypocrisy and an early cog in the grand machine that leads to Gail's notebook landing in Hank's lap. The stolen spoons set in motion the eventual unraveling of Walter White. Marie's petty thefts prove that everyone, in this world, breaks bad in their own way. Her flaw is domestic, not dramatic, but no less human. And yet, certain arcs test even the most generous viewer's patience. Hank's post-shootout paralysis, for example, turns the DEA agent into a sulking tyrant, tormenting his wife while wallowing in self-pity. It's realistic, painfully so, but grim to the point of stagnation. The show thrives when characters act under pressure, not when they marinate in misery. Equally debatable is the much-maligned Fly episode, a bottle experiment that divides the faithful. 2 actors, 1 room, 0 plot advancement. Defenders hail it as a meditative character study. Skeptics see a budget-saving fever dream about an insect. It's Breaking Bad at its most self-indulgent, beautifully directed, philosophically empty. Then there's Season 2's infamous plane crash, a divisive masterpiece of cause and effect storytelling. The dominoes fall with mathematical precision. Walt lets Jane die. Jane's father loses his mind. 2 planes collide, hundreds perish. Symbolically rich, narratively daring, and yes, utterly contrived. The show leans heavily on, science, theatrics, to sell an event that borders on absurd. But in retrospect, it's a brilliant moral Rube Goldberg machine, adding hundreds of corpses to Walt's invisible ledger. Jesse Pinkman's Mexico misadventure may have strained credibility, but it's hardly alone. The drug dealer's sit-down with Gus stretches believability to breaking point. The very premise that Gus Fring, a man who hides his empire behind fried chicken and iron discipline, would personally meet with 2 street dealers is preposterous. His entire operation depends on insulation, yet here he is, taking business meetings like a local franchise manager. For a character defined by distance, it's a strangely amateur move. The series' side plots often divide audiences along the realism fault line. Skylar's tax entanglement with Ted Beneke, for instance, felt like watching someone do paperwork in real time. It's narratively essential. It traps Walt financially and forces him to confront Gus, but dramatically inert. Likewise, the endless parties at Jesse's house, while thematically illustrative of his moral decay, feel like slow-motion montages of people we don't care about. Then there's Jane Margolis, a lightning rod for fan debate. Some treat her as a tragic victim, others as the devil in eyeliner. The truth, as always, lies between. She's neither savior nor villain, but a deeply human enabler. Her relapse into heroin with Jesse isn't seduction, it's surrender. She drags him down because she's already drowning. The irony is poetic. Her death catalyzes his eventual awakening, while sealing Walt's damnation. For those who still insist she would have ruined Jesse, perhaps they've missed that ruin was already underway. By contrast, Andrea and Brock exist primarily as narrative tools, emotional leverage for Jesse's suffering. Their presence humanizes him, but never transcends function. They lack the dimensionality granted to Jane, serving more as moral furniture than full characters. Andrea's eventual execution by Todd is gratuitous cruelty, a transparent bid for shock value. The writers, usually masters of restraint, suddenly behave like amateurs trying to prove how dark they can go. Speaking of darkness, Breaking Bad occasionally mistakes misery for depth. The first half of the final season is a parade of slow, joyless Skylar close-ups, as though the camera itself is depressed. The Magnet episode, a momentary burst of absurd energy, reminds us that this show can still have fun, until it immediately forgets how. If Breaking Bad occasionally collapses under the weight of its own self-seriousness, its sequel series, Better Call Saul, suffers the opposite ailment: narrative glacialism. The Sandpiper Crossing case, stretched across 6 seasons, becomes the legal equivalent of watching paint litigate itself dry. It begins as a clever character study of Jimmy and Chuck, but soon devolves into procedural inertia. By the time the settlement arrives, one half expects a previously on montage reminding us why we should still care. Even Breaking Bad's finale, usually treated as sacred text, is not immune to scrutiny. The neo-Nazis giving Walt $10 million instead of a bullet defies all logic. It's the kind of plot convenience that belongs in a lesser show, justified only by post-traumatic narrative politeness. Perhaps they respected Walt's reputation. Perhaps the writers simply needed him solvent enough to finish the story. Either way, it's a mercy killing of realism. Other offenses are smaller but no less grating. The opening of Season 5, flashing forward to Walt's M60 acquisition, undercuts its own suspense by announcing that he will survive long enough to buy a machine gun. Even creator Vince Gilligan later admitted it was written without knowing why, a rare instance of the show confessing its own uncertainty. And then there are the moments that simply test the audience's tolerance for contrivance. Walt and Jesse, somehow never under investigation despite constant chemical explosions and missing lab equipment, appear to inhabit a version of Albuquerque where the police department runs on dial-up. The plausibility of early episodes now reads like parody: bathtub acid, RV thefts, open house meth cooking, and yet, miraculously, it all coheres once the show finds its rhythm. To its credit, Breaking Bad often redeems its missteps through consequence. The Marie subplot leads to Gail's notebook. The Ted fiasco forces Walt's confrontation with Gus. The plane crash exposes Walt's moral rot. Even the boring arcs, when rewatched, reveal themselves as carefully laid bricks in an architectural marvel of cause and effect. Still, perfection it is not. Some of its beats are too broad, some of its villains too stylized, some of its deaths too convenient. Yet perhaps that's the secret to its enduring appeal. The show's flaws humanize it. Like its protagonist, Breaking Bad strives for mastery and occasionally breaks the very rules it set for itself. If television's goal is to mirror human ambition, the desperate, self-justifying pursuit of greatness, then Breaking Bad achieves that not only through story, but through its own contradictions. Its brilliance lies in its audacity to overreach, to stumble, and to get back up, coated in cinematic glory. In the end, even its bad moments matter. Every awkward accent, implausible explosion, or tedious subplot feeds into the grand mosaic of a show that dares to take itself too seriously, and somehow earns the right to. After all, if Walter White taught us anything, it's that genius without error isn't genius at all. It's just chemistry. Great art decays from the inside out, and we love it for that. Subscribe.